Hurricane Katrina, a most powerful hurricane with unprecedented strength. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks. All windows will blow out. All damaged roofs will fail, leaving most homes severely damaged or destroyed. The vast majority of native trees will be snapped or uprooted. Power outages will last for weeks as most power poles will be downed and transformers destroyed. Airborne debris will be widespread, and may include heavy items such as household appliances, and even light vehicles. Water shortages will make human suffering incredible by modern standards. Persons, pets, livestock exposed to the winds will face certain death if struck. Devastating damage expected. Do not venture outside.
They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. To me, it's worth far more. It's the narrative that we get without words. It's the instant understanding despite any language barrier. It's that connectivity that we get from the visuals. So many people lost so much. And sadly, it was a lot of Black people who we saw, and it was those images that caused a lot of us to feel that we were forgotten about. That was a rude awakening, but it gave New Orleanians this feeling that no one's gonna save us. We have to save ourselves. For some reason, when I left for graduate school, I had all the family photos. I was not a photographer then, and I just decided to stack my photos high. And our home did flood, but because I had the premonition for some reason. And when I came back 45 days after Katrina, fortunately, our photos of the family were still there. I went to graduate school at University of Mississippi 10 days before Hurricane Katrina. When I was in my small apartment in Oxford, Mississippi, and my family of my sister, her 2 kids, my mother and father evacuated and lived with me for a couple of months. The people who evacuated, a lot of them went to neighboring states. But even beyond the damage that was done, it was a speculation that we were gonna make a new New Orleans, or we're gonna get rid of all the poor people. It was gonna be better than ever. New Orleans was gonna be like a Disney. New Orleans is not a monolith. You have some of the rich of the rich and some of the poorest of the poor. I grew up with my mother's stories about Hurricane Betsy that happened 40 years prior to Katrina. I could not imagine that much water in the city. I was going through a guilt while we were watching the coverage. I wanted to be there. I always think about a quote that I believe is attributed to Thomas Jefferson. New Orleans was an impossible city on an inevitable site. He said that New Orleans should have been started 90 miles up north, up the Gulf of Mexico, which would be roughly what Baton Rouge is. He said it was inevitable because it was a port city. It was impossible because of the flooding. So here we are. One of these boxes is like all Katrina photos. So when I first came back to New Orleans, 45 days after Katrina, I knew it was other stories that should be told, but it was that camera that gave me something to do, that gave me a connection to the people. That camera gave me some instant gratification. It gave me this drive to tell stories. And this is my dad moving back to New Orleans, so I call it Blown Back. And this is my mom This is also 2006 Thanksgiving. It's a portrait. And over here in this left corner, we see where the Army Corps of Engineers went to all the homes after Katrina and marked, like, if someone was dead. They sprayed this on all the doors. It was just part of the checks that they did. You know, people couldn't return back home to New Orleans till some 45 days after Katrina. A lot of people much longer. So it just gave you a feeling of sadness when you saw it, particularly for those who came home and had a number on their door signifying that someone died. And for some people, you hear it, if Katrina itself didn't kill them, it was the remnants after. We couldn't immediately move back in. So like most New Orleanians, when we came back home, it was FEMA trailers. So I call this FEMA Trailer King, and this is my dad cooking dinner, something he always did in our FEMA trailer. And this was life for people for quite some time. You're on your property, but you're not in your home because you're just waiting for things to be rebuilt. It was too much damage, and it was an arduous task for a lot of people. And that's people who were fortunate enough to still have a foundation of a home. It's some people whose entire home was ripped off the foundation, and they had to truly rebuild from the ground up. That wasn't our situation, but we never moved back into that home. I grew up in New Orleans in the 90s, and I am who I am because of this place, and I am who I am despite this place. My fondest childhood memories are in two different neighborhoods in New Orleans. First, the 7th Ward, and then secondly, the 6th Ward. And also growing up in the 6th Ward is where second lines pass. When a brass band came by and people doing athletic things like jumping on cars, second line, and all in rhythm, my mother would let me take my trumpet, go out there and try to play, just join the second line, and I probably sounded sad, but it gave me a joy. When you have that Bamboula rhythm, when I play the trumpet, I feel a connection to New Orleans. It gave me my first way to express myself beyond my voice. It's just a connection to my culture that I could vocalize my feelings, which is just joy. Through my church, I met with Marcellus. I would go to the studio with him. It was that foundation that allowed me to go into black bars for the first time. Eventually playing in Little People's Place in 1995, where I played with Wynton Marsalis, members of the Charles Mingus Big Band. And it's an experience that I couldn't have got anywhere else but New Orleans. As long as you had your horn was your pass to everything. And it's when Hurricane Katrina happened, black bars started disappearing, that I felt a deep neglect and regret that people coming after me wouldn't or couldn't have those experiences that, like I said, only happened in New Orleans. All right, y'all. How y'all feeling today? I wanted to talk to Beverly and Dr. Dwight McKenna, first of all, for my love of storytelling and their long relationship as the publishers of the New Orleans Tribune. All right, Dr. McKenna. All right. So, yeah, I want to come here and talk.
Good, good. Come on in.
For several generations, the New Orleans Tribune has served the black community of New Orleans.
All right, man. Thanks.
So before I knew you all as museum owners, I knew the newspaper. So could we take a look at some of the archives of the New Orleans Tribune?
Sure. Celebrating our 40th anniversary, which is incredible to me. I can't believe it. Here's some of the papers. that our director has laid out for us to look at. This was a post-Katrina. This was the first Katrina edition after the storm. But where the guys actually said, we finally cleaned up public housing in New Orleans. We couldn't do it, but God did. The city must be something very different with better services and fewer poor people. Those who want to see the city built want to see it done in a completely different way.
Black community was fleeing from the flood. The sheriff of Jefferson Parish blocked the bridge and said, well, go back and die in the flood, but you can't come to Jefferson Parish. So this is how they looked at us. They looked at us as less than people, as garbage who was to be discarded or wasted. Get out of here, and we don't care where you wind up, but get away. Well, that didn't happen.
After Katrina, we saw a need to start a history museum where we talk about the history of free people of color. Our first museum was a museum, George and Leah McKenna Museum, uptown New Orleans. And that's a museum where we feature artwork by and about Black people. With the DEI and all of that, we've always, publishers of Black newspapers and Black publications, we've been dealing with that for 40 years. What they're talking about now, withdrawing support, it's nothing new to us. It's nothing new to us.
You can't withdraw what we've never
What
had.
they've never given us.
Yeah.
When I look back now, over these 40, 50 years, over all that we have done and accomplished, our motto has been resistance. Nobody's given us any money. Nobody has given us paintings. Nobody helped us. On the heels of that storm, though, Katrina, we looked around to what was happening in the city. It was the beginning of gentrification. They were coming in to take the street. Bayou Road is said to be the oldest street in the city, the oldest thoroughfare in the city. It has a very historical significance. The indigenous people and the Africans, the Afro-Cubans, settled back there 1,000 years ago. So we saw where they were coming, where they were going, and again, we said, no, this will never happen.
They bought the block, and they preserved Black businesses. They preserved Black history. It's my hope that the McKennas can inspire us all. 4 years after Katrina in 2009, my first series was Dreams Do Come True. It was hope. It was life. It was joy. It was listening to jazz and really appreciating the culture of our city. It was celebrating the first Black president. When I really think about it, most of my artistic practice is motivated by two things: being curious or a response to really being upset. And during COVID, I was upset and I was curious, and I was, like most people, trapped inside. The New York Times reached out and asked me to document my family at home. And then it's something I just continue to do. And my wife's a New Orleans woman. We went on our first date. It was at Joan Mitchell Center. And since the last time we met, his exhibit that I had at the Antenna Gallery focused on my family, my wife birthing a child, our second child together, as we navigated going to the doctor visits. And to a degree, it felt like Katrina all over again. We were sick and shut in and to some degree, shut out. And those who were working were disproportionately impacted.
The impact of the coronavirus outbreak on members of the famed Zulu Club in New Orleans after they performed at Mardi Gras. After participating in the iconic parade, at least 30 members tested positive for the virus, and at least 8 have died.
My Vanishing Black Bars and Lounges series started in 2018. One of the photos in the series is of Stephen Elway, who's the owner of Sportsman's Corner, a bar that his grandfather started. And this photo was taken right after his mother died as a result of the coronavirus. You can see his sad eyes at an empty bar, and yet he still decided to persist and keep the doors of that club open. I placed my work at 2 locations, the Ogden Museum of Southern Art, as well as Sweet Lorraine's Jazz Club. Sweet Lorraine's Jazz Club is located just outside the French Quarter, and it's known for its music. Meeting with attorney Darryl Gray at Sweet Lorraine's was just so important, just to hear him talk about keeping the legacy alive. So Darryl, in my almost 7 years of this project, one of the things I noticed is that most of these bars don't have a succession plan. Can you unpack that a bit for me?
It's a testament to a grander understanding of Black ownership, economics, philanthropy, and how all that wraps up into one. Think about when people used to come together to plan for the civil rights movement, and they did those in Black restaurants and bars. So we have the responsibility to carry on those legacies.
You know, I was talking to Paul Sylvester, who had the bar before you did, and before that, it was his mother who had Lorraine's Dugout. And I know Paul's a deep historian. Is that one of the things that attracted you to get involved in this business?
Absolutely. You know, understanding legacy and the importance of legacy and what Sweet Lorraine's has been and where it can go is really the main thing that attracted us to it. You know, we understand how important it is to preserve the legacy, and the baton has to be passed to somebody that can take it to the next level and be a part of the next generation. And we're very pleased and proud to be a part of the growth of that legend.
You know, obviously, this is a premier jazz club. Jazz started here in New Orleans, from Louis Armstrong to Wynton Marsalis, Trombone Shorty. With Utopia, the talent who's performing today, how do you find and cultivate young talent and have an intergenerational lineup most nights?
You find people like Utopia who's deep into the second line culture. She's an amazing artist, amazing young woman, and you want to be in a position to give those people a space and a stage and a platform to continue to grow and build and mature in this ongoing fabric of what New Orleans is for the rest of the world. You know, jazz did start here, and the history in jazz runs so deep, and it's the authenticity that you get from coming in these doors. You know, creating a space to where the narrative is presented from the people who created the story.
What's happening? How you feeling? All right. Good to see you. I just wanted to chat with you before you started your set. And how long have you been playing?
Since I was 9 years old.
Wow. Yeah. You know, a term you hear in Black American music or jazz a lot is a young lion. So I would say you're a young lioness. Tell me about that intergenerational aspect that you're bringing.
New Orleans is the birthplace of jazz. I took the Louis Armstrong approach, basically going off of feeling.
Is every note planned, or do you plan to improvise a little bit tonight?
Well,
It won't be to the extent where I'm gonna make it a business to improvise, because you don't have to do that in jazz. No. Whatever is in you comes out automatically anyway.
I'm a very quiet person, so I feel like when words fail, music speaks. I'm telling my story with my instrument.
It's so refreshing to see a young person into an art form that's centuries old. And Utopia, she's the future. If you're from New Orleans, or even if you come here a lot, we're known for our food. Arguably, I'd say it's the culinary capital of the world. And after Katrina, you had world-renowned chefs like Nina Compton move here and just take off, where she put her Creole heritage from St. Lucia with our Creole heritage here in New Orleans. Influences from the Africans, Haitians, Spanish, French, all that made us who we are. I grew up in a household where both my mother and father cooked dishes like succotash, gumbo, stuffed bell peppers. The smells emanated throughout the house. But my parents were entrepreneurs as well, so on Friday nights after they were tired, I remember going to Dooky Chase to get a po' boy. They're located in the 6th Ward, Treme. Treme is significant because it's one of the oldest black neighborhoods in America. You walk around a restaurant and you see all the accolades. You know how big of a deal the family is. So the first opportunity I had to photograph Mrs. Chase for a magazine, I was ecstatic because I too would go into that lineage of documenting such an amazing woman.
Okay, so welcome to the historic Dooky Chase's restaurant.
Thanks for having us. Let me go ahead and take my hat off for respecting the dining room.
Oh, thank you. That was one of my mother, Chef Leah Chase's rules. She said, all gentlemen remove their hats when they come in to dine. So thank you for respecting her.
No problem. And that's one of the things that I've always loved about this historic restaurant is the elegance of it. Can you tell us a little bit about that, why it was so paramount to your mother?
So that was important to my mother because she walked down the street of the French Quarter. She looked at all these elegant restaurants. She looked at the tablecloth. She looked at the tableware. She looked at the stem glasses. She looked at everything. And that was something that our community didn't have for a long time. And she always dreamt that one day I will have this in my community.
It's interesting that Leah Chase is so well known, but the business was started, she married into the business?
She married into the business. She's the inspiration for Princess Tiana. Right. And the thing is, Princess Tiana, as well as my mother, had this dream of owning a restaurant, a fine dining restaurant, to make their community just proud of them. So every morning I get up, I say to my parents, and especially to my mother where Disney is concerned, I'm living your blessings. Because I think that's what we all have to do whatever we can to the best of our ability, and know that the blessings may not be on us, but it will be on generations following us.
Black folk couldn't have gone to the French Quarter to eat like that. And so it's like you had to come here. I mean, and this was even listed in the Green Book. We
were definitely listed in the Green Book. But I will tell you, after my father and my mother, grandparents, who they were big on social justice. And we have the famous upstairs, which we call the Legacy Room, where a lot of our history in the Civil Rights Movement took place. Now, I will tell you, after the Civil Rights Movement, the laws passed that we could go anywhere to eat. My parents said, well, we know African Americans want to see what they're missing, but Caucasians not looking to see what they're missing. So this is the part where I really, admire my parents. So they said, we have to make our community proud of us. We have to better ourselves. And that's when they actually expanded. We started off in 1939 as a po' boy shop. Right in the next block, my mother started her famous po' boys. But then when she was able to save enough money and get someone to help her with the financing, then she bought the building, which right behind us is the original dining room and the bar. And so it was about bringing people together. It was after Katrina happened, and my parents, at the ages, late 70s, my father, my mother was early 80s, they were determined to get this business up. And personally, I thought, this might be a time for y'all just to stay back and just kind of enjoy your life, because they were in here 7 days a week. They never did take off. My mother, you know, she really had the need to keep busy, and which is, I think, important because they were older, and a lot of older people lost hope because their surroundings had changed. They didn't feel, you know, in New Orleans, we're a community. The mayor found out she was in Baton Rouge, but the mayor asked her, you know, we have a place here, we can open it. And she said, no, at my age, I only have strength to open one place, and that's my restaurant in New Orleans. I'm going back so I can be there for my community and my city.
But going from first generation, second generation, now in third generation of continuous ownership for this restaurant.
And now we have the fourth generation, which I say to my dad, they came in 2016. My mother received the James Beard Lifetime Achievement Award. That was a big thing for her. We were blessed, I was blessed, some members of our family to be there for her. But you know, my mother, she always wanted her restaurant to receive a James Beard Award. This year it happened. And to me, that was the biggest blessing, that we could now receive this for my grandparents and my parents. You know, my generation is slowly moving out, and we want to make sure that Dooky Chase is here forever.
And Aunt Stella saw a need in her family, and she stepped up and did it. It's that engine that continues to drive the whole Chase family. Hey, Eve, what's going on?
What's happening?
Oh, it's so good
How
to
are
see
you? Welcome in.
Oh, thank you, baby.
It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Always, always. I just got talking with the wonderful Stella, and so much to celebrate. I came in here for a celebratory drink. What do you suggest?
So I would like to make a mint julep, a Treme mint julep is what we call it.
Oh, now, come on now.
Here we are, and now we're ready to sip our cocktail. Well, cheers, sir.
Cheers.
Treme.
Treme. Jesus.
I like to do a little dance.
I know, right?
I'm always dancing back here like, yes.
And you definitely have the personality to bartend too. I prefer a bartender that is very warm, conversational, and it's not just small talk, but it's like coming home.
I love being here, but it's so easy to do because every time I'm in here, someone comes to the bar and goes, hey, let me tell you a story. I used to sit right in that corner and talk to your grandfather, and he would do this and this and this, and it's such a blessing to just be able to receive stories of my grandparents, of my grandmother, because they would take time with everyone. They knew everybody's family history. They would sit there and tell you who your mama, who your daddy was, and when they used to come and see them, all the things. Not only are we keeping our family's legacy alive, other people are doing the same thing along with us.
Some restaurants have photos of like the staff and the owners with famous people.
We have stories.
Yeah. One thing I noticed about everyone in the Chase family, it didn't seem that you all were forced to come into the business. And I believe it was after COVID you decided to come home. What was the catalyst for that for you?
To me, it feels like I'm playing in a dollhouse. Because I grew up running back here, getting the bartender's way, getting my grandfather's way, and, we were just kids. So, and if we did too much, he would grab us by the shoulder and he would come up with a tune, and we would stop, and he would hum a melody that he would just, dot, 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 now it's your turn. And we'd go, okay, grandfather, okay, granddie, dot, 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 dot. And we knew he did that so we could slow down, so we would not run around and get in people's way. And so I realized that he taught himself how to do this.
Right.
He came into the business and taught himself how to manage and run a bar and make great cocktails not even drinking.
Wow.
See, I became a connoisseur and an enthusiast because I enjoyed to imbibe.
Right.
But during COVID was when I made my first cocktail.
What?
Yeah, we did a family package for Mother's Day.
Okay.
And I was like, what would I give my grandmother for Mother's Day? And she loved lavender roses. So I was like, okay, well, let me make some lavender syrup. And that has been a hit from here on out. I'm like the lavender lemonade lady from now. Everybody comes back in their own way, of course, because we're so blessed and honored to have this and to continue this and to give this gift.
I love when you walk in, you know, you have a warm greeting, but I look up, I see Barack Obama, you see George Bush, just here, like in a Treme. I just,
In our community.
in our community, one of the oldest black neighborhoods in America.
That's why it's important, because if you have a place in the community that's bringing people to see the community, that means they're seeing us.
So many great stories, a great drink. I think now it's time to go and eat. Hello.
My man.
What's that, baby?
How you making out, brother?
I'm good. How you
Good to
doing?
see you. Doing well in
How you
yourself.
feeling? Oh man, I can't call it. How y'all feeling?
I can't complain. Well, I hear you had a good conversation with my Aunt Stella and Eve at Dooky's.
Oh, I did. It's conversations, a little libations.
I had, and they also told me you were hungry, so I got to cook you some food in this
Come on
kitchen,
now.
brother.
Let's get it. Let's
go ahead on in.
Obviously, everything on the menu is wonderful. And I was asking Stella what was her favorite dish to eat. And she told me it was a dish that her mother made.
That's right.
And you know, I guess it's a traditional dish with the fish.
It is.
The grits.
Both of my grandmothers grew up with fish and grits. And then one thing I know my aunt loves is a corn mock shoe. But here, as we're talking about that next generation, we added a little something to it.
But what was the pivot that you said I need to go full time into the restaurant?
And I never forget this one statement my grandmother said. We were sitting around the table. She said, if I can get that restaurant back, imagine what it would do for my community. It wasn't imagine what it would do for my family. It wasn't imagine I spent the last 60 plus years building it. She said, imagine if I get those lights on, what it would do for the community around me. It would give people a sense of hope, a sense of confidence that they can come back. And that registered right here with me and said, well, damn, what am I doing with my career? And as I got into the business, I said, look, we have this one restaurant, the flagship restaurant. It is the restaurant that has the history, the tradition, that really set the foundation for the next generation. But as the next generation is coming in, and you met them, the fourth generation, we big. So it's not just me included in the fourth generation. How do we grow this business? How does it become family sustainable in the essence of how can I sustain my family and you sustain yours as we grow the restaurant or the hospitality in our family? But for me to sustain a family, we go into the airport business. As that grows, the next generation can take its avenue and one person leads that business. Now we go into chapter 4. Another generational person can lead this one. And now we have a bucket that everybody can pull from. And that's how we're growing as a family, strategically. So chapter 4. Chapter 4's name is not because I'm Dooky the Fourth. Chapter 4's name is because it's a celebration of the fourth generation of Chase family members in this business. So when you come through those doors and you see the art on the wall, we're telling that story through the fourth generation. You saw the Leah Martin piece holding out a hand of a strong African-American woman with a silhouette. And next to that silhouette that's 3 generations. You'll see a flower, that's generations. That gave her that confidence. That gave her that position. That gave her that foundation. That's basically the story I'm telling. That's the only reason why I'm here is because the generations that came before me taught me about this, taught me about life, taught me how important it was to serve this community. And everybody that comes into business understands that, number one, flagship stays flagship. Dooky Chase is always a priority. That's the thing that started everything. Because when people fall in love with this city, they actually fall in love with the culture of this city. And it's not just one culture, it's so many different influences. That's why you have to celebrate your culture, and I need you to celebrate your cultures and tradition, because when people love this city, they understand how diverse it is. They understand that we gotta celebrate this. We gotta pay homage to West African, the folks that were brought here. We gotta pay homage to the Native Americans who were brought here. We also gotta pay homage to the folks that came and just started a new culture, new traditions, because that's made this city who we are. Everybody playing their role.
If we lose that, we lose the city.
Yeah.
And if we lose the city, we lose most of our influence on the whole world.
That's right. And we're not gonna lose either, because we're gonna keep it rocking.
Persist and resist. Being with Dooky Chase in the kitchen just really showed a love he has for culinary, as well as a deep understanding of its history. And as he said, you can't progress forward unless you know where you come from. New Orleans is about legacy. New Orleans is about community. For generations, for centuries, people have gathered at Congo Square. Even prior to slavery, people were gathering at what's now known as Congo Square. And since 1989, the Congo Square Preservation Society has ensured that people continue to gather. And you could go there any Sunday at 3 p.m. for dancing, community, drumming, and releasing and cleansing of spirits.
So this is indigenous land. In respect for our ancestors and elders, we burn sage to clear the energy out, to pay homage to them. So the tree is a way for me to make sure we're clearing the space, and that we make sure that I'm paying attention to any information that they would like to share. And so I bless the sage we have, honor the tree, and the energy of the tree, and then walk around the tree as well, and then honor it again. And then after that, we make sure we bless the circle as well, to make sure that the drummers are covered, and anyone that comes in the circle are an experience of being honored and reverent. Soon I will pour libations. Libations is an act of storytelling, and I will tell a story, much like the ancient ones did before I arrived. I actually stand on their shoulders. Music is an integral part of what it means to be African, part of the African diaspora. And that's something that people brought with them. They brought people here from 19 plus ethnic groups. They didn't speak the same language, but they did play music. Music became the common language for people. The chattel slavery that people experienced in Louisiana was atrocious, and it could rob people of their lives and their spirit. But the drums have a way of healing one at the cellular level, allowing people to let go of the drum and trumpet that lodged in their body, and allow them to kind of embark upon a new direction, expecting the new to occur, though they haven't really seen what it looks like. It becomes a universal language. It is a sacred space. It's not a place you come and do anything in, because the indigenous people and the African ancestors of the diaspora deem it necessary for us to honor who we are and what they were and how that matters to our now.
Mama Denise Graves of the Congo Square Preservation Society talked about music being this transcendent language where it's not a barrier. It's something that we all understand. And for me, being a retired trumpet player, it felt good to pull out my old axe and participate with so many people expressing themselves through music. It was coming back home in a sense, because my storytelling started through the trumpet, and now it's through my pen and through my camera. And particularly with the camera, it's that universal language that we all understand. If it wasn't for those people, those early resettlers who had that fortitude, like the Chase family and so many other families who refused to be denied, New Orleans would be far less blacker than it is now. So from Congo Square to Mardi Gras to Black Masking Indians and Second Lines, they're there. So my mother, who's an ancestor now, will be so proud of the life that we are building and continue to build. 20 years after Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans is still here. Despite being pushed out, despite being displaced, We practice these traditions, we carry on, we thrive, and we ain't going anywhere.